Hello and happy Thursday. It is time for another therapy nugget, and I am here at Nectar over in Oakley. Highly recommend that you check it out. It is amazing and has a lot of awesome brain powering food. So today I think you'll be extra excited because we are going to talk about the neuroscience behind heartbreak. I know for me personally, when I go through something, it really helps me to understand what it is that I'm going through and what's happening in my brain and my body, and you can get through something a little bit faster too when you understand it. So I'm going to particularly be referencing an article today that was by Fisher and colleagues in 2010. And it's all about rewards, addictions, and emotion regulation associated with rejection and love. And so kind of my goals for this, I could talk about this for like 4 hours, but my goals for this are really to allow you to understand what's going on in your brain and what's going on in your body, and some chemicals too when you experience heartbreak. So the first thing you should know is that when you're in love, you have two particular chemicals that get released. You have dopamine, which is the pleasure chemical, which is the same exact chemical that gets released when you use drugs or when you have sex. The other chemical is oxytocin. And oxytocin is the nurturing, loving companionship chemical. It is the hormone that gets produced when lactating women fondly look at their baby and they produce breast milk in order to feed their child. And so that just goes along with that love being such a very deeply felt thing, and our bodies experience it chemically so strongly. And so you have this dopamine and you have this oxytocin flowing, and in the functional MRI studies we can see in the caudate nucleus in your brain there is an extra production of these chemicals that they can see flashing. When you experience heartbreak and you lose that love, the production of those chemicals stops because you're no longer experiencing the reward of that person, and cortisol begins getting released from your adrenal glands. So cortisol is stress. Stress builds up in your blood as adrenocorticotropic hormone, which I tell a lot of my clients, you've probably heard me say that, but adrenocorticotropic hormone can only really be released from your body when you cry or sweat. So first thing I would tell you if you are experiencing heartbreak and you have more cortisol is that you need to exercise or sweat somehow. And you probably need to have a good cry, which is okay. You can feel your feelings. So another really cool thing that especially this study showed was physical pain and heartbreak light up in the same area of your brain. And so evolutionarily speaking, according to super old psychologists, this is because when groups of animals or groups of people who relied on socializing and mating or being together in general in community for survival, when they would become isolated, they would die. They couldn't survive on their own. And so the brain adapted to, which of course I believe this is God's awesome design, that He created our brains to adapt to us experiencing social rejection in such a painful way, because it literally means death. When we lose someone, our brains and our bodies respond as if we are going to die. And so if you've experienced heartbreak and it really just feels like you're losing pieces of you and you're just kind of numb or you feel like dying or whatever, that's really, really normal, and it kind of means that your body is working properly. Here's the third really cool thing about heartbreak. Not that heartbreak is cool, but we're understanding it, and so it's all good. Your brain, just like with nicotine and with cocaine, your brain responds the same way to love. So when you have someone in your life that gives you that deep, deep pleasure and that awesome pleasure release, then you want it all the time. You crave it, you think about it. There's a study that shows that people who were broken up with thought about the person that they had lost about 85% of their day. Just everything reminded them of that person, and they couldn't get them off of their mind. We want to think about that person because if you remember me saying, the brain doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality. And so if we think about that person, then our brain actually thinks that we're interacting with that person. This also, as an aside, don't shame people who do online dating and have never met the person, because it's actually a perfect world for someone, because you have someone that's messaging you, or that you might not be seeing on video, maybe you are, and you have some sort of pictures of them or this idea of what they look like, and you can just over in your mind imagine dates with the person and cuddles with the person and these perfect scenarios where you never fight, and you create a relationship in your mind with this person that is absolutely not real, but you don't know the difference. Your brain really doesn't know the difference. So this is why if you're experiencing heartbreak and there's really no chance for reconciliation, you really do have to implement that distraction, like we talked about in the multitasking video, and try to think of anything else. And when you do, your brain can't attend to two things at one time, and so it will successfully do that. Talk about it. Don't ignore it. I'm not saying don't think about it at all, but you know the difference between thinking about how much it hurts and wanting to get through it and wanting to find other ways to cope, and just thinking about that person and imagining things with that person and sending yourself in that spiral where you're fostering the relationship over and over again. So because love and emotional rejection and heartbreak have the same power in the brain that cocaine and nicotine do, the addictive proportions are really important to talk about, because you are really hooked on this thing and you're going to want it. And the imaging shows in the brain that the neurons wait around for these chemicals to be released, and they continue to fire expecting these chemicals to eventually come for a long time after the loss. Even if you want to be over it, your brain is kind of like, no, that felt really good, I still really want this. And so because of that, what happens in the front of our brain is we see the orbital frontal cortex kick in. And this is the part of the brain that is responsible for learning from our emotions and controlling our behavior. And so when that kicks in, that's when so much sorry, I got a cough. Hopefully it still records. That is when we start realizing that maybe the relationship wasn't the best for us, or just like if someone was addicted to drugs, wow, that drug really wasn't serving me, it was bad for my body, it was breaking up my relationships with family members and cost me a lot of money and losing jobs and whatever else. And so that's that orbital frontal cortex that kind of kicks in and makes you actually think about it. But the other part of our brain, that caudate nucleus, is still like, I really want this, and I'm willing to do some pretty impulsive and pretty irresponsible things to get it because it feels so good. So another thing that you can do for that chemical experience in order to replace the loss of someone that you really loved is you can find other ways to release dopamine. And so we talked about sex and drugs, but those might not always be appropriate in your life, so please don't hear me saying that that's where you should go. How about listening to music that you really like or that resonates with you? Or how about creating something, even cooking or having a good meal with a friend, or playing something or creating something? Those would all do the trick. And I encourage you to research activities that increase dopamine and find them for yourself. There is hope for you, for sure. From a bottom-up perspective, what you can do with your body I want to remind you that the right side of your brain is the really emotional part, and so oftentimes the left side of your brain, that logical part, doesn't really get access to the stuff we're feeling. And so a really easy thing you can do is bilaterally stimulate. So if you've ever done the tapping with me, you can always do this, and your right brain's telling your left hand to tap your right body, and your left brain's telling your right hand to tap your left body. So you can do that. Or you could always, just as long as the left and right side of your body are doing something at the same time oppositely. So if I squeeze my left fist or my right fist, and then I maybe contract my left foot at the same time. So my right fist and my left foot are going into my left, and then you're kind of like doing this. That would help your brain to really, while you're thinking about everything that's hurting you, that will help your brain make more sense of it and sort and process it better, because now you're using way more brain power in order to do that. So I know this was a little longer than usual, but I hope that it was helpful, and I encourage you to look up that Fisher article. I'm pretty sure it's public. It's from 2010. If you want to know the name of it, I'll put it in the description. Still getting used to this. And as always, ask me questions. I can give you way more of these. So anything that you need me to help you understand that would help you kind of work through your symptoms better, ask me. If you want to know what happens to your brain when you're depressed, or like what delusional thinking entails and how your body responds to that, totally write something. So happy Thursday again, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.